Right in the middle of my wedding, my father stepped forward and slapped me so hard my veil shifted sideways. The music died, the room froze, and then the laughter started like people had paid to see me break. My mother smiled from the front row while strangers whispered as if my humiliation belonged to them. I stood there burning, cheek throbbing, heart splitting, but I refused to fall apart for any of them. They thought that one moment would erase years of lies, control, and everything they did behind closed doors. They thought the man beside me would stay silent, and the truth would stay buried with their secrets. What they didn't know was I had already seen the cracks in every story they told. Then a chair scraped back, and my father-in-law began walking toward the stage with a calm that chilled the whole room. He reached for the microphone like he had been waiting for this exact second. And when he finally spoke, the people who shamed me were the ones about to lose everything. The slap cracked through the ballroom so hard the violinist stopped mid-note. 1 second earlier, I had been smiling for photos, bouquet in hand, standing under white flowers that cost more than my first car. 1 second later, my father's palm had turned my face sideways in front of 200 guests. My veil shifted. My earring hit the floor. Silence swallowed the room. Then someone laughed. It came from the third table near the dance floor. Sharp, nervous, ugly. Another joined in. Then whispers rolled across the room like they had been waiting for permission. "You deserve that," my father said. My mother smiled. Not wide. Not joyful. Just satisfied. I straightened slowly and looked at them both. No tears. No shaking hands. No scene. I touched my cheek once, lowered my hand, and stood tall enough to make people uncomfortable. At the back of the room, one of the servers froze with a tray midair. He glanced at another server, and she looked away too quickly. Like they already knew something was wrong before I did. My father turned to the guests as if he were making a toast. This wedding should never have happened. Murmurs rose again. Beside me, my husband Daniel didn't move. He stared at my father, jaw locked, but there was something else there too. Hesitation. He looked toward the front row. Then toward 2 empty seats no one had mentioned all morning. Then back at me. He still said nothing. That hurt more than the slap. My mother stepped closer, smoothing her dress. "We begged her to come to her senses," she told the room. "She never listens. Never listens." I almost laughed. For 28 years I had listened to everything. Listen to your mother. Listen to your father. Listen to what looks proper. Listen to what people will say. Listen to your older brother because he knows better. Listen to your fiancé because marriage means compromise. Compromise had become another word for disappear. At table 6, my cousin Nina held her phone low under the tablecloth, camera pointed straight at the stage. Quietly recording. I noticed everything now. Daniel finally reached for my hand. I stepped half an inch away. That tiny movement landed harder than any scream could have. He noticed. "Good. You're embarrassing yourselves," he said to my parents, but his voice lacked force. He sounded like a man reading lines too late. My father turned on him fast. "No. She embarrassed everyone first." There it was. The real show. Guests leaned in. Chairs shifted. Forks paused over expensive plates. I looked at Daniel. "Say it." His face changed. He knew what I meant. My mother's smile vanished. "Don't." "Interesting." My father frowned. "Say what?" Daniel swallowed. He loosened his collar. For the first time all day, he looked scared. Before he could answer, my Aunt Rose hurried toward the stage, hand raised like she meant to calm everyone, but halfway there she stopped. Saw Daniel's face. Saw mine. Then quietly stepped back. "Smart woman." "Tell them," I said. Daniel rubbed both hands together. "Maya." My father snapped. What is he hiding? I didn't raise my voice. The same thing you all helped hide from me. The room changed temperature. My brother Ethan stood up from his table so suddenly his chair scraped hard against the marble floor. Every head turned. Don't do this here, he said. That confirmed enough. I smiled at him for the first time in years. Here is exactly where it belongs. My mother took another step toward me, lowering her voice. We can discuss this privately. No, I said. You preferred public humiliation. Let's stay consistent. A few guests looked down into their laps. Others watched harder. My father pointed at Daniel. Speak. Daniel inhaled once. 3 months ago, your family asked to meet me alone. My mother closed her eyes. There it was again. Too late. He continued. They said Maya had a history of instability. That she lies when stressed. That if I wanted peace, I should keep financial decisions in my own name. A wave of whispers hit the room. My father looked at my mother sharply. I never said instability. You were there, I said. He ignored me. Daniel kept going now, words spilling faster. They gave me documents. Old school reports. Therapy notes. Medical things. My stomach dropped for one cold second. Then steadied. I already knew those files had been stolen from my old room years ago. My mother whispered, we were protecting you. From what? I asked. My own adulthood? Daniel looked sick. They said if I married you without precautions, I'd regret it. Guests were no longer pretending not to stare. My father turned red. That was advice. That was sabotage, I said. Ethan started walking toward the stage. 2 groomsmen moved instinctively into his path. He stopped, breathing hard. Nina's phone never lowered. I looked at Daniel. And what did you do with their advice? He didn't answer. That answer was enough too. I pulled a folded envelope from beneath the bouquet ribbon. I had carried it all morning. Because unlike everyone here, I came prepared. I handed it to him. His fingers trembled before touching it. Read it. Maya, not now. Read it. He opened the envelope slowly. Inside was one sheet. Simple. Clean. A printed copy of the private agreement he had asked me to sign 2 weeks earlier. Separate assets. Restricted access. Conditional inheritance language. Clauses dressed as caution. My father stared. What is that? Daniel looked at the page like it might burn him. I answered for him. The prenup your family coached him into presenting after the invitations were sent. Guests this time. Real ones. My mother grabbed the edge of a chair. That's not true. I turned to the guests. Then perhaps Daniel can explain why my mother edited paragraph 4. Daniel shut his eyes. The room erupted into layered whispers. My father stepped toward him now. You let her mother write your legal agreement? No, Daniel said weakly. She suggested language. I almost admired the phrasing. Almost. Then a phone buzzed loudly in the front row. Someone looked down, then up at me, pale. Another buzz. Then another. People were checking messages. A partial text preview flashed on Nina's still recording screen where I could see it upside down. Sent to wedding guests. If you were present at the Hawthorne Ballroom, remain seated. Important information regarding the bride's family and groom's trust board is about to. The rest cut off. Interesting. Very interesting. Daniel saw it too. His father stood. Chair back. Slow scrape. Controlled sound. The entire ballroom stilled harder than it had after the slap. Richard Hale was not dramatic by nature. He was old money without needing to announce it. quiet enough to make loud people nervous. The kind of man who could lower a room simply by standing inside it. He adjusted his cuffs, then walked to the stage. No rush. No anger. Just certainty. My father tried to recover himself. Richard, I'm glad you're here. Your son has been manipulated. Richard didn't even look at him. He climbed the 2 stage steps, took the microphone from the stunned wedding planner, and faced the room. Then he turned to me first. Are you all right? Yes. He nodded once. Then to the crowd. We're going to fix this. No one moved. My mother looked suddenly smaller than I had ever seen her. Daniel whispered, Dad. Richard held up one finger. Silence. He looked at my father. You struck my future daughter-in-law. No title had ever sounded sweeter. My father tried bluster. This is a family matter. Richard's reply came calm and clean. Not anymore. He reached into his inside jacket pocket and removed a thin folder. Paper. Always paper. My brother Ethan went pale the second he saw it. I noticed that too. Richard continued, voice level. 4 months, I suspected interference. Financial pressure. Coached legal drafts. Attempts to isolate Maya before marriage. Daniel stared at the floor. Richard opened the folder. I asked questions. My mother whispered, Jerry. My father didn't answer. Richard glanced at the first page, then back at the room. What I found does not begin with today. He lifted another sheet. It begins 9 years ago. Every nerve in my body went still. 9 years ago was the year my grandmother changed her will. 9 years ago was the year Ethan suddenly launched a business with money no one could explain. 9 years ago was the year I was told to stop asking questions. Richard looked directly at my parents. There is also the matter of the missing transfer. My father's bravado cracked for the first time. What transfer? Richard's expression didn't change. The one made at 2:14 p.m. the day your mother was admitted to hospital. My breath caught. That timing. I knew that date. I knew exactly where I had been when everyone claimed they were at her bedside. But if money moved at 2:14, then someone had lied about far more than today. My phone vibrated in my hand. Unknown number. One message. I was there. They never entered her room until after 3. I have proof. L. I looked up sharply. There was no L in my contacts. Richard raised the microphone again. And before anyone leaves, he said, security has locked the exits. The ballroom exploded into noise. I smiled for the first time that day. The ballroom broke into motion the second Richard said the exits were locked. Guests stood halfway, then sat again when 2 security guards appeared near the doors. Phones lifted. Whispers turned sharp. My mother grabbed my father's sleeve so hard the fabric wrinkled in her fist. Ethan took 1 step backward like distance alone could save him. My father forced a laugh that landed nowhere. This is absurd. Unlock those doors and stop this circus. Richard never looked away from him. Sit down. The room obeyed before my father did. He opened his mouth again. You can't just. Then stopped. For the first time in my life, he had no idea which move still worked. Daniel stood beside me, pale and rigid. Dad, what are you doing? Correcting a mistake, Richard said. Several, actually. He opened the folder and removed 3 copies of bank records clipped together. He held them high enough for the front tables to see, then handed one set to a woman in navy near the aisle. I recognized her after a second. Margaret Cole. Daniel's family attorney. She had been sitting quietly through everything. So had others. Richard planned this before I ever walked into the room. My father's voice hardened. Private financial documents obtained illegally are worthless. Margaret answered from her chair. Not when they were subpoenaed. The room made that sound people make when they realize entertainment just became evidence. My mother whispered, "Jerry, what did you do?" He didn't answer her. He answered Richard instead. "You think numbers prove context?" "No," Richard said. "But timing does." He pointed to the first page. 9 years ago. Transfer from Eleanor Whitmore Trust account. $400,000. Authorized 2 hours after hospital admission. My grandmother's maiden name. My pulse went cold and precise. Eleanor Whitmore was my father's mother. The woman everyone claimed was too confused to manage paperwork that week. The woman who supposedly insisted Ethan deserved help starting his company. I remembered asking why no one waited until she recovered. I remembered being told to stay out of adult matters. Ethan moved toward the stage. "This has nothing to do with today." Richard turned one page. "It has everything to do with today." Ethan lunged for the papers. A security guard stepped between them instantly. Ethan froze, then backed off with both hands raised. That one move told the room more than any speech. Nina's phone was still recording. I almost wanted to thank her. Richard continued. The transfer was signed electronically using credentials activated from the hospital guest network. My father scoffed. Coincidence? Margaret slid another document across the nearest table. Login records. Daniel stared at me. "Did you know any of this?" "No," I said. I only knew the story never made sense. My mother looked from one face to another, trying to catch up to years happening in minutes. "You said your mother wanted Ethan helped," she told my father. "She did." "You told me she asked for privacy." "She did." "You told me Maya was selfish for questioning it." He snapped toward her. "Because she was." Weak move. Old move. It failed. Richard lifted another sheet. "There's more." My father took a step forward. "Enough." Richard's voice stayed even. "No." Enough was years ago. The room held still. He looked directly at me. "Maya, did anyone ever tell you your grandmother amended the trust 1 month before she got sick?" I shook my head slowly. "No." My father's face changed. There it was. Real fear. Richard nodded to Margaret. She opened a leather case and removed a sealed envelope with my grandmother's attorney's stamp across the flap. Unopened. My breath caught. Transition. Something important had been sitting closed this entire time. Margaret placed it on the head table where everyone could see. "This was delivered after Eleanor passed," she said. "Your father informed counsel the family wished no further review. It was archived when no beneficiary contested." I heard my own voice before I felt it. "Beneficiary?" Margaret met my eyes. "Plural." My mother staggered back into a chair. "No." My father moved fast for the envelope. Security intercepted him again. Guests gasped openly now. He shouted, "That belongs to my family." Richard replied, "Exactly." Daniel finally found his voice. "Dad, why didn't you tell me this before today?" "Because I needed facts before accusations," Richard said. "Unlike some people." Daniel lowered his head. That landed too. Ethan drifted toward the side exit, casual enough to pretend nothing. He reached the wall, saw another guard there, hesitated, then slowly returned to his table. Caught animals always hate small rooms. My mother was staring at my father like she had never met him. "Did you steal from your mother?" "Watch your language." "Did you?" He looked at Ethan. Wrong choice again. That silence answered her. She began to cry without sound. I watched and felt almost nothing. Not cruelty. Just distance. Too much had burned already. Richard turned to me. There's another matter. The anonymous message you received. My phone was still in my hand. You know about that? I arranged it. I blinked. What? A nurse named Lena contacted our office last month after hearing your family discuss the hospital timeline during rehearsal dinner planning. My mother looked up sharply. Rehearsal dinner? Richard ignored her. She recognized the date because she worked the floor 9 years ago. She kept notes. He gestured toward the ballroom entrance. A woman in her 40s stepped in wearing simple black slacks and a hospital badge clipped to her purse. Steady eyes. No drama. Lena. My father actually paled. I don't know this woman. She answered immediately. You tipped me $50 to say your mother was resting. The room snapped toward him. You asked me to tell visitors no one could enter room 614 before 3 o'clock. My mind moved fast. But Richard had said the transfer happened at 2:14. Meaning while everyone believed they were in grandmother's room, they were somewhere else. Lena continued. You and your son were in the family lounge with a laptop and 2 witnesses from the business. Ethan slammed both palms on the table. This is insane. Lena looked at him once. Blue tie. Same nervous habit with your watch band. He instinctively grabbed his wrist. Mistake. A few guests laughed softly this time, but not with him. My father barked, You're lying for money. She reached into her purse and removed a small spiral notebook. I was a nursing student. I wrote everything down. She handed it to Margaret. Pages dated, timed, neat handwriting. 2:05 p.m. Mr. Whitmore requested privacy. 2:12 p.m. Son entered lounge with briefcase. 2:14 p.m. Loud argument about password. 2:31 p.m. Asked nurse to redirect sister if she arrived. Sister. Me. I had arrived that day at 2:28 and been told grandmother was asleep and not to upset her. I remembered crying in the parking lot afterward. I remembered believing I missed my chance. I looked at my father. You kept me from seeing her. He tried authority again, but it cracked on contact. She needed rest. You needed access. No one defended him. Not even Ethan. Richard took the microphone again. There is still one more item. The whole room leaned forward. Even the waitstaff had stopped pretending to work. My father's voice dropped low. Dangerous now. Think carefully. Richard smiled without warmth. I have. He turned to Daniel. Son, did you know who drafted the revised prenuptial clauses? Daniel swallowed. Mom's outside counsel? No. Richard looked at my mother-in-law's empty seat in the front row. Then at me. Your brother. Shock moved through me so fast it felt clean. Ethan laughed once, brittle. I'm not even licensed in family contracts. Richard nodded. Yet you billed through a shell consultancy last month. Margaret placed another document on the table. Invoice paid from Daniel's personal account. Consultation, Asset Protection Review. Prepared by E. Whitmore Advisory. Daniel stared at Ethan like he'd never seen him before. You said you were helping me avoid embarrassment. Ethan shrugged, cornered people's version of confidence. I was. You inserted clauses that would have removed Maya from trust succession if divorce occurred before 2 years. My head turned sharply. What trust succession? Too many faces changed at once. Richard answered me. My estate. The room erupted again. Daniel grabbed the back of a chair to steady himself. You told me signing was routine. It was a test, Richard said. Of judgment. Then to Ethan. And you failed first. My brother finally lost composure. This family always chose her once she became useful. No, I said. You just noticed fairness for the first time. He glared at me with something old and rotten. She was never supposed to come back. Silence hit like glass. My mother covered her mouth. My father closed his eyes. There it was. Truth without polish. Not one mistake. Not one misunderstanding. A campaign. Years long. Deliberate. Richard spoke softly now, which made everyone strain to hear. Open the envelope. Margaret broke the seal. Paper slid free. My grandmother's final amendment. She scanned the first page, then looked up at me. Her expression changed. That scared me more than anger would have. What is it? I asked. She read carefully. 1 month before her admission, Eleanor Whitmore removed sole control from Jerry Whitmore. My father grabbed the nearest chair as if the floor shifted. Margaret continued. She divided governance equally between all 3 grandchildren. I counted automatically. Me. Ethan. Anne. She turned the page. Then stopped. The room waited. Richard's eyes moved to me. Read the next line. Margaret's voice was clear enough to cut metal. And if any beneficiary is found to have used fraud, coercion, or concealment against another heir, their share transfers entirely to Maya Whitmore. No one breathed. Ethan whispered, "That can't be real." Margaret lifted the notarized seal. "It is." My father shouted, she was confused. Lena spoke from the back. She dictated notes to me that week. She was sharper than all of you. I stepped toward the table, toward the papers, toward the wreckage of every version they built. Then Margaret added one final sentence. There is an attached appendix naming where the concealed funds were moved. She held up the sealed second packet. Still unopened. And every face on my family's side went white. Margaret held the sealed appendix between 2 fingers like it weighed nothing. My father looked at that packet the way drowning people look at shore that is moving farther away. Ethan had gone still. My mother kept staring at each of us, lost between old loyalties and new facts. Richard stepped aside and gave me the space in front of the room. Intentional. He did not need the spotlight anymore. Open it, I said. Margaret broke the second seal. Paper slid out. 3 pages. Bank routing numbers. Property records. Corporate filings. Clean, organized, devastating. She scanned the first page once, then handed it to me. I read fast. Concealed funds from the original trust transfer had not gone into Ethan's business. That business failed in 18 months. The money had been moved again through 2 shell companies and used to purchase a commercial building downtown. Title holder, J. Whitmore Holdings. Beneficial owner hidden through layered entities. Income generated for 9 years. Rent collected every month. My father tried to step forward. Security blocked him before his second foot landed. That's private. No, I said. It was stolen first. Gasps moved across the ballroom again, but softer now. People were done with shock. This was accounting. Margaret took the microphone. There are also unpaid tax discrepancies tied to those entities. My father snapped toward her. You work for them. I work for facts. She closed the file in one clean motion and stepped back. She was finished with him. Daniel looked sick. You told me your success came from discipline. My father barked a laugh that sounded broken. It did. Richard glanced at Daniel once. Remember this moment. Ethan finally moved. This was Dad's structure. I didn't control anything. I lifted the second page. Your signature is on the refinancing documents. He opened his mouth, then closed it. Small details and people. My mother turned to Ethan slowly. You knew? He wouldn't meet her eyes. She slapped him. Not hard. Not dramatic. Just sharp enough to erase the room for 1 second. Interesting how history repeats when power runs out. No one laughed this time. I looked at Daniel. Did you know any of it? No. Did you know Ethan billed you to weaken me? His face hardened. No. Did you trust my family over me? He had no defense for that one. Richard extended a hand toward me. There's one final item. He gave me a smaller envelope I had not noticed tucked inside the appendix. My name on the front. Maya. Written in my grandmother's hand. My chest tightened once. Then steadied. I opened it carefully. 1 page. Folded twice. If you are reading this, someone finally chose sunlight. I heard my grandmother's voice immediately. Jerry loves control. Ethan loves shortcuts. You ask questions. Keep doing that. I swallowed and kept reading. Your share was never the money. It was judgment. If they force your hand, use it. Then one final line. Do not forgive people who are only sorry they were caught. I folded the letter and slipped it into my clutch. My father saw that and panicked. She was manipulated near the end. She forgot names. She repeated stories. Lena answered from the back. She remembered yours clearly. A few guests laughed before catching themselves. Richard nodded to security. Call counsel. My father lunged for the stage mic. Failed. One guard took his wrist, another stepped in front, and the movement ended there. He was escorted 3 feet backward, which somehow looked worse than being dragged. My mother sat down and did not rise again for a long time. Ethan tried a different route. To be clear, this doesn't automatically transfer anything tonight. There are proceedings. Reviews. Probate questions. He was right, technically. Margaret returned to the mic already filed this afternoon. The room shifted toward her. She continued. Emergency petition, asset freeze request, notice to revenue authorities, and beneficiary enforcement action. Ethan stared at Richard. You planned this. Richard's reply was simple. I verified this. Then he turned to me. Your choice now. That mattered more than the money. Everyone felt it. I looked across the room at 200 witnesses who came for flowers and found a reckoning. I looked at my mother, who finally seemed to understand silence can also be punishment. I looked at my father, still trying to stand taller than facts. I looked at Ethan, calculating exits in a locked room. Then at Daniel. He stepped toward me carefully, like the floor might reject him. I failed you. Yes. I believed noise over truth. Yes. I'm asking for a chance. I let that sit exactly long enough. Then I held out the prenup pages from Chapter 1, still folded in my bouquet ribbon. Sign the revision. He blinked. What revision? I had prepared one too. Of course I had. Margaret smiled faintly as she produced another document from her bag. No penalties. No traps. No hidden clauses. One line mattered. All marital decisions require direct disclosure between spouses, free from third-party interference. Violation voids protections. Daniel read it once. Then signed. Without consulting anyone. Good start. Richard took the papers, glanced at the signature, and put them away. Now you sound married. My father shouted from behind security. This is ridiculous. She's turning everyone against blood. I faced him fully for the first time since the slap. No. You did that when you chose theft over family and control over truth. He sneered. You think you've won because of money? No. I lifted my cheek slightly where the sting had faded hours ago. I won when you hit me and I stayed standing. The room went still. He looked away first. That was new. Phones buzzed again. News travels faster when wealthy people are embarrassed in public. Someone near table 3 whispered that the downtown building's tenants were already being contacted by lawyers. Another guest muttered that one of the shell companies had his cousin listed as nominal director. Threads were snapping everywhere. My mother rose at last and walked toward me. Security moved instinctively. I shook my head once. She stopped 3 feet away. I believed what was easy. Yes. I let them shape everything. Yes. Tears were there, but she seemed too tired to use them. What do I do now? Tell the truth the first time from now on. She nodded once. No hug. No scene. Earned distance is cleaner than forced closeness. Ethan made one last attempt. Maya, listen. We can settle privately. Family arrangement. No need to destroy everyone. I almost admired the speed of the pivot. You mean save yourself? He shrugged. Honesty at last. Too late. Margaret handed me a pen. I signed beneficiary enforcement papers right there on the cake table. The florist watched with open admiration. Richard asked the planner quietly if dessert could still be served. She nodded in shock. Excellent, he said. No reason to waste good cake. That broke the tension harder than shouting could have. Laughter burst from scattered tables. Real laughter this time. Relief laughter. End of storm laughter. My father hated it. He started yelling names, accusations, old stories, anything he could throw. No one picked them up. Secondary characters tell truth fastest. Nina ended her recording, saved the file, and walked straight to Margaret to ask where to send a copy. My Aunt Rose closed her purse, stepped around my father, and sat beside my mother instead. 2 uncles quietly left the Whitmore side of the room and joined Daniel's family table. Shifts happen in inches. Police arrived 22 minutes later. Financial crimes unit first, then local officers because public scenes with rich people attract layers. My father tried charm. Failed. Tried outrage. Failed. Tried chest pain. A paramedic checked him, found nothing urgent, and stepped back. He was escorted out in polished shoes across marble floors he paid to rent for my humiliation. Ethan was not arrested that night, but his phone and laptop were seized under warrant authorization already in motion. He watched them bagged one by one. He never looked at me again. My mother stood alone near the doorway after they left. No husband beside her. No son beside her. Just consequences. She whispered, "Can I call you tomorrow?" "You can call." That was all I offered. Daniel approached next. "If you want to cancel everything, I'll accept it." I considered him carefully. "You stood still too long." "I know." "You signed too quickly." "I know." "You listened to them." "I know." Then I looked at the paper he had signed without asking anyone. "You moved once it mattered." He nodded. "Then earn the rest slowly." He exhaled like someone given work instead of mercy. Better gift. The ballroom staff began resetting tables around the wreckage of the evening with astonishing professionalism. Plates replaced. Glasses cleared. Flowers straightened. Life loves continuity. Richard picked up the microphone one last time. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said calmly, "the ceremony will continue if the bride still wishes it." 200 faces turned to me. I looked at the stage where I had been slapped. At the aisle where I had walked in hopeful. At the chairs where people came to watch. Then I looked at Daniel. Lose the front row. Within minutes my family's reserved seats were removed entirely. Clean line. Better view. I married him 30 minutes later under the same flowers. No violin this time. Just quiet. Richard stood where my father was meant to stand and offered me his arm without words. I took it. When we reached the front, he kissed my forehead once and stepped back. Simple things land deepest. The vows were short. Honest. Necessary. No one mentioned forever. Only truth, effort, and choice. That was enough. Months passed fast after that. The court confirmed the trust amendment. Fraud findings triggered reallocation. The commercial building and related income streams transferred under receivership, then into the estate distribution. Taxes, penalties, and civil exposure stripped most of what my father thought he had built. Ethan settled separately after turning on everyone before anyone could turn on him first. Predictable. My father lost board seats, memberships, invitations, and finally the house when legal costs mounted. He sent letters full of blame and requests in equal measure. I did not answer. My mother rented a small townhouse near the park. She started volunteering 3 mornings a week. She calls before she visits now. Progress can look ordinary. Daniel and I went to counseling because repaired things need structure, not slogans. He listens faster now. Speaks cleaner. Doubts outsiders first. Also progress. As for me, I kept my name, my work, and my grandmother's letter in the top drawer of my desk. The downtown building was renamed Whitmore House only on paper for 1 week before I changed it. Maya Center. Ground floor leased to a legal aid clinic for women dealing with financial abuse. 2nd floor to counseling services. 3rd floor to startup grants reviewed by an independent board with rotating oversight and public audits. No hidden rooms. No family shortcuts. Opening day was quiet by design. No ribbon. No cameras. Just keys changing hands. As I left, my phone lit up with one message from an unknown number. You ruined us. I knew exactly who sent it. I deleted it without replying and kept walking. Because they lost everything the moment truth stopped needing permission.